Welcome to the Mile High Hoops podcast. I am Jake Shapiro, and we are 1 week away from the NBA trade deadline. Right when this podcast release is pretty much exactly a week out from the NBA trade deadline. And the Denver Nuggets are not expected to be major players for a variety of reasons that we will get into, but still an exciting time nonetheless for those who love the transaction. And I think given what we have seen with the Nuggets over the last 3 games, worst losing streak of the season, people are feeling a little antsy, like the Denver Nuggets might need to make some moves. There were 4 moves proposed by ESPN in a recent trade deadline preview story, not all from the Nuggets' perspective, but involving the Nuggets with some other teams. And I wanted to look at those and see which one might suit the Nuggets best. So we'll do that in a little bit. First, I wanted to get into the changes last night we saw from the Denver Nuggets. The starting lineup, for the first time all season, did not feature Christian Braun. He had missed 1 game, so I guess not the first time all season, but games in which Christian played, which was all but 1, he had started. After one of the best games of his season against Chicago, Christian gets pushed to the bench for Aaron Gordon to come back as the starting power forward. Now, I am completely fine with Aaron Gordon being in the starting lineup. That is his job to lose, and he has not lost it. And he was one of 2 Nuggets who I thought played pretty well last night, him and Jamal Murray. So good to see AG back. Good to see him back playing almost his full allotment of minutes. But instead, the substitution comes with Russell Westbrook starting alongside Jamal Murray in the backcourt instead of Christian. And you see late in the game, when the Nuggets are struggling with spacing, why Russell Westbrook doesn't necessarily coexist on the floor with Aaron Gordon. You see some of the problems. And the turnovers were brutal last night. Jamal had to force the issue because Nikola Jokic was not good. And really, we didn't really get a taste of this starting lineup as much as we wanted to because Jokic got into foul trouble 2 minutes into the game. And it really put the rotations out of whack. So I'm not going to make a judgment on the starting 5 yet. I'd like to see what happens in Philadelphia on Friday and Charlotte on Saturday with what alignment Malone puts out there. But I thought it was no surprise that AG returned to the starting lineup against the New York Knicks, who crushed the Nuggets and were just a size mismatch across the board when those 2 teams played in Denver. Instead, what I want to focus on from the lineup changes is Christian Braun, because I do not think he deserved to lose his starting lineup spot. Now, is he going to be a team player and take it on the chin? Probably. Christian is that kind of guy. I'm not that worried. And he has the confidence, clearly. He just played one of the best games of his NBA career a couple nights ago. But I don't want to ding him in any way. I don't want to punish him or give him a perceived punishment or anything. And I understand Malone's perspective on this, which is that Nikola and Russ have played so well together, I want to keep them on the floor together. Okay, sure. But in my mind, the best 2-man combo in the NBA is still Jamal and Nikola. And you're not maximizing those opportunities. Instead, you're actually hurting them by Russ's inadequate ability to space the floor. So for me, I thought it was pretty telling that the Nuggets went with Russell Westbrook instead of Christian Braun, when Christian Braun has done nothing but a good job this year. Had a couple weeks there where he wasn't shooting the ball well, got a little less aggressive, but for the most part, it's been doing a good job. Where Russell Westbrook's come in here to stabilize the bench and be a bench player, and he hasn't done it. He's been good, especially for a minimum contract guy, but he hasn't even done his role. Let's be honest about it. And I'm still not excited to see him in the playoffs, especially given, again, what we saw in crunch time last night, which has happened consistently in crunch time, which is if he's on the floor, the Nuggets might as well just get on the bus. So I'm looking at that over the weekend. and just generally how disappointing the Nuggets have been on this road trip. Didn't come out with fire against Minnesota, just played down to their opponent against Chicago. And I think things were out of whack against the Knicks because of the Jokic stuff, but Nikola has not wanted to be on this road trip, and that's pretty tough. I'm not going to say anyone won or lost the MVP case on January 30th, but as much help he put towards his own case last week with that game against the Kings, he has done just as much harm in the last few days with his efforts on the East Coast. So let's look at what the Nuggets might do at the NBA trade deadline. The Nuggets are unlikely to make a major move because they're not trading Jokic. Murray and Gordon are untradeable. So Porter is the biggest name that they can trade. In the NBA, you basically need to match salaries in order to conduct deals. Porter makes, $30 plus million. So in order to get a major player back, you're probably trading Porter. And the Nuggets don't have anyone that's tradable in the $20 million to $10 million range. That's why the Zeke Naji contract was, maybe appealing as a trade chip, but that's just not how things work anymore, especially when he's that inadequate of a player. So the Nuggets can probably build a package to get themselves up to $12 million, but that's just on the tipping the scales, and you're probably including a first-round pick. And that's the most that they could do if they're not trading Michael Porter Jr., which I do not expect them to do. I think Porter's been good, and this is a bad time to be saying that after his game in New York last night. He looked awful. But I don't think the Nuggets are going to shake up the core four. I'd be completely stunned. So you're talking about, do they make like a major move, including some, minor pieces and try to combine assets and use a first-round pick? The Nuggets only have one draft pick they can trade, and it's a single first-round pick. And it's all the way out in the 2030s. I don't know if it would be wise to use that this year, especially on the players that are on the market and what the Nuggets can do. So realistically, the Nuggets who don't have any roster spots have to clear up a roster spot either with trading a player or cutting a guy like Jalen Pickett or Hunter Tyson. So where we probably end up is that the Nuggets are going to get a minor player that they will use a little bit the rest of the regular season and probably will not factor in the playoffs. That's kind of my take on it. Where are the Nuggets' holes? I think we all know the Nuggets' holes. They could use a little bit more help with the guard spot. They need perimeter defense. They need better three-point shooting on offense. They could use a little help rebounding, honestly, which comes into play with the backup big situation. But what we've learned about Michael Malone is that no matter which backup big the Nuggets acquire, he's unlikely to play them, particularly come playoff time. So how can the Nuggets best utilize their assets and improve the team? Maybe ever so, even just marginally getting a body in here that can contribute. So this is what ESPN has suggested. 4 different trades. I'm going to read them off to you. Vlatko Čančar and cash considerations for Seth Curry in Charlotte. That's 1. 2, Drew Eubanks in a 2031 second-round pick to Utah, who gets Zeke Naji and the right to swap first-rounders in 2031, top 2 protected. 3, and this is the biggest name that the Nuggets could get in this group of 4. Zeke Naji, Vlatko Čančar, swap rights in 31 that are top 5 protected for Chris Boucher of the Raptors. And then 4th, Denver gets Daniel Tice and a 2030 second-round pick for cash considerations from the New Orleans Pelicans. So you're seeing the names out there. When I say biggest name, it's Chris Boucher, who is a reserve player in the NBA. So the Nuggets not looking for a starter. We're not surprised by that, right? Going to look for something minor. And out of those 4 players mentioned, maybe only one would even factor into the playoff rotation, and that could be Chris Boucher. Now, let's start with the Seth Curry thing, and I'll give you who I think is the best trade after all of this. Seth is towards the end of his career. He's 34 years old. He's on a very cheap contract. He's played 36 games for the Hornets this year. He's only playing, 14 minutes a night. Still one of the best three-point shooters by percentage in the league, making one a game at 46%. If you go back 4 or 5 years in the playoffs, he was actually the third leading scorer on that 76ers team with Ben Simmons that, had the mental collapse that has basically ended the 76ers franchise. But Seth Curry's career hasn't gone that well since then. He's bounced around between Brooklyn and, Dallas and now Charlotte, his hometown team. So would his hometown team trade him to Denver in hopes of him getting a title like his brother? I don't know, but he is the most playoff experienced guy here. Him and Tice are probably in the running 1-2. In this trade, the Nuggets are trading Vlatko Čančar, who I actually really like as a player, but I'm going to be honest. I don't know if Vlatko's coming back this year or if Vlatko can contribute coming back this year after missing most of the season with major knee surgery. And I understand that he's Jokic's best friend and blah, 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 but they can sign him for a minimum contract this offseason if they really feel some type of way about it. I need somebody who can come in here and be a body right now. Can Seth Curry do that? Well, Seth Curry gives you another option at the three-point line. He's not the size of Julian Strawther, but he's also not as inexperienced as Strawther. And I worry about Strawther getting playoff time, just like how Peyton Watson didn't get much playoff time last year in year 2. Seth Curry, only 6'1" compared to Strawther's 6'7". And again, duplicative of some of the things Strawther does, but I still think could be another option. If you look at the bench in the NBA, like a bullpen in baseball and just different options and guys who do different things, I think Seth Curry can do different things than what is currently on the Nuggets bench or what Michael Malone trusts, and it gives you another option as a shooter. I wouldn't expect Seth Curry to play more than 8 minutes a game in the playoffs, even if he got in the playoffs. Maybe come in there, just splash a couple threes or in a specific situation if the Nuggets are chasing a game. I don't know. But could be another option for the Nuggets, and you're giving up almost nothing in that deal, just Vlatko and cash considerations. So number 2, Drew Eubanks in a 2031 second for Zeke Naji and the rights to a first. I'm just going to come out and tell you, I hate this deal because I do not like the fact that the Nuggets are wasting their only tradable first-round pick on basically moving off Zeke Naji. Eubanks is on a 2-year contract, so he fills your center need this year and next year as the backup. He's a little bit younger at 27 than some of the guys in the market. Another backup big for Phoenix who succeeded, because that's the Dario Saric story. And in Utah, he's been okay this year. Started 4 games, played 36, getting 16 minutes a night, scoring 5 points a game, 6 points a game for the Jazz, and getting 5 rebounds a game. Nothing really special about Eubanks. He was a really good player at Oregon State. I covered him in the Pac-12. Always liked him in college, but not someone I'm particularly think, is going to change the fortunes of the Nuggets or represent something different. I don't know how much better Drew Eubanks even is than Zeke Naji in the first place. I think he is a little bit better, but I don't know how much better, honestly, where it's worth trading a first-round pick just so you can basically trade out the salary of $3 million over the next 2 years. So I don't like that deal. We'll come back to Eubanks in a second. Then you've got Chris Boucher, another player I covered in the Pac-12 at Oregon. He has really made a name for himself in the NBA. He's already very sneakily 32 years old with only 8 years experience in the NBA. Zeke Naji, Vlatko, and a swap rights in 31. I, again, don't like moving off the first-round pick for a guy I'm not even sure that the Nuggets are going to play. He is averaging the second most points of his career this season at 10.7, playing 18 minutes a night. He is by far the best player in this group, shoots the 3 a little bit as well, grabs some rebounds, can play defense, is pretty lengthy at 6'9", 200 pounds. He has won 2 different NBA titles as part of the Warriors team as a young player, and then as part of the Raptors a couple of years later, maybe a year later, also as a younger player, but as a contributor on that team. We'll come back to all the big comparisons in a second. And then finally, the 4th trade, which, again, I think this one is pretty solid, actually. This is kind of in that Seth Curry class for me because it's Daniel Tice and a 2030 second-round pick coming to Denver for cash considerations. And the reason why the Pelicans would do this is it would help them get under the luxury tax. Tice is only making $2 million, but that's how close they are to the luxury tax. So you'd be taking some salary off the books of New Orleans, who could potentially save like $40 million essentially by not paying the tax. Tice has been fine for the Pelicans, who do not have a center besides him. Basically, they've been playing Herb Jones and Zion there at times, trying to make the thing work with Missy, the young player. He's played 37 games, 9 starts, 4.3 points. We're all in that same category, right? 4.3 rebounds a game. Tice is a guy who featured in on a couple different Celtics teams, both the 19-20 team and then the 21-22 team. He made deep runs with the Celtics, was an important player either as a starter or a bench player in figuring into their bench rotation. So he's a guy who can play in the playoffs. That is appealing. But at 6'8", he cannot shoot really. He has at times a little bit, but him and Aaron Gordon sharing the floor is not something I'm particularly psyched about, especially when you consider, if you look at all of the 4 people or 3 people I just named and compare them to DeAndre Jordan, the 3 bigs, so discounting Seth Curry, and look at the couple bigs, well, if you look at the advanced metrics by win shares per 48, and this is a little bit tough because DJ has played so few minutes this year, has only played 390 compared to the next fewest on this guy's list, Drew Eubanks at 555, Boucher's already at 716. So literally Boucher's lapping Jordan in minutes, but win shares per 48. So discounting how many minutes they've actually played, but what are they doing when they're on the floor? DeAndre Jordan's actually been the second best player of this bunch. Boucher's the only one that's been better. And that's kind of my point, is I don't know that Eubanks or Tice are actually better at this point in their NBA's careers than DeAndre Jordan. Now, do I trust DeAndre Jordan to stay out there for 15 minutes a night? No. But you only need him out there for 12. Maybe. Jokic is going to play 36 minutes a night, right? That's 12 more minutes for a center. And in the playoffs, he's playing 40. And they're playing Aaron Gordon at the backup center for another couple minutes. So there's no guy here that really moves the needle for me. I like Boucher. It's just I don't think the situation is right. Eubanks a little bit younger, has some cost control on that contract. That's kind of nice. But again, if you look at the per 100 possession numbers, DeAndre Jordan is getting 4 more rebounds per 100 possessions than Eubanks is, which is 2 more than Tice, who's tied with Boucher, basically. Again, Boucher, the only guy on this list who can shoot. I'm a little bit worried about playing DJ in the playoffs, and especially late in the first quarter because of the hack of DJ, and he's going to be sent to the free throw line where he's shooting 41% on the year. But DJ's got the best defensive rating on this group. Also the worst offensive rating, but he's got the best defensive rating. Eubanks is only getting, Eubanks is getting a block per 100 possessions more. Sure. The assist numbers, Tice is a little bit better of a passer than this group. But honestly, I think these gains are marginal. And Boucher is not a marginal gain. That's an actual gain. But to me, I don't want to trade a first-round pick for that. I'd rather just regroup in the summer. So here's where I fall in line with these 4 trades. And this is what's likely going to shake out with the Nuggets, something around this ballpark. I'm doing the Seth Curry thing because he's at least someone who might play for my team. Vlatko, I have very little faith in, and I hate to lose the size, and I hate to lose his vibes. But the Nuggets need shooting. And Curry, at the very least, does not cost you really anything here. And you could get Vlatko back this summer. It's just cash. And that's why I'm also doing the Tice deal. It also gets you a second-round pick. Tice is making almost no money. You can move on from him in the offseason. As long as you're comfortable with cutting Hunter Tyson or Jalen Pickett, which I'm completely comfortable doing, basically the Nuggets are trading cash for, well, let me rephrase this. The Nuggets are trading cash to one team and getting cash back from another team. So let's call that even. So the Nuggets are basically trading Vlatko Čančar for Seth Curry, Daniel Tice, and a 2030 second-round pick, with having to cut one of the players that's younger who has not worked out. I'm doing that in a heartbeat. And again, I don't know that any of these players play in the playoffs, but it helps you down the stretch of the season and it gives you another option. And it's 2 guys, funny enough, out of the 4 guys on this list, Boucher and Eubanks are costing you a first-round pick or at least a swap, barely have played in the playoffs. Tyson Curry are playoff-proven guys. Malone's going to trust them. So if Malone has a fit of rage and doesn't trust Peyton Watson or Julian Strawther, there's 2 guys he can go to who have done decent things in the playoffs in the past in his NBA career. It's something. It's at the bare minimum something. And you're getting that something for essentially nothing. So that's why I do that deal with the Charlotte Hornets, and that's why I do the corresponding deal with the New Orleans Pelicans if I'm the Denver Nuggets between now and next Thursday. We're going to talk to you one more time before the trade deadline on Tuesday here on the Mile High Hoops podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Denver Sports. We will have a post-NBA trade deadline show. I might try to make something special, a spectacular out of that. But for now, a little spit there. I got a little too excited about the trade deadline. What can I tell you? Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hoops podcast, and we'll talk to you very soon.